I read The Hobbit when I was 11 years old, and then I was in a stage production when I was probably 13 to play an elf.
So you played a different
I
race.
did. I played an elf, and there wasn't a big budget for the show, so Gollum was made of paper, and the dragon, they didn't have anything for the dragon, so he was just a red light and a puff of smoke and a voice off stage on a microphone. I loved it. It was a great show, and then that led me to read Lord of the Rings, and then of course Peter Jackson made the trilogy, and then here I am as part of his Hobbit trilogy, which is thrilling.
What about Tolkien's writing do you find most interesting?
I think the most interesting thing for me is that people think of this genre as fantasy. Actually, I find, and I think Tolkien stated it himself, that he preferred legend. He wanted it to feel like real history, like it had really happened, of this world, but just of another time.
So let's talk about playing Thorin Oakenshield, the leader of the dwarves. How did you approach a role of such complexity?
I tried to work out who he was as a young prince. He has a sort of two-pronged path of vengeance. One is towards Azog, and the other is towards the horror that lays in that mountain. And I think that horror is so great on him. I don't think he even begins to imagine that he could defeat this dragon. He's just going to take his dwarfs there, get them in the door, and then figure it out.
Is it true that you based Thorin in part on the director, Peter Jackson himself?
You know, because I didn't really know Peter at the beginning, to say that I based the character on him is probably not true. But as we were filming, I became inspired by Peter and the way that he leads. I let that idea wash over me, and used it for Thorin.
So let's talk about the look of Thorin. Did you use your own beard?
Initially, in the first block, it was a fake beard, but then we stood down for a while because Peter wasn't well, and I realised as well that I could grow the same beard in the length of time. It was about 8 weeks, so I had to go at growing it, and it pretty much came out the same colour as the beard that they'd made for me, which is ironic.
Did you have eyebrow prosthetics and hair extensions?
Yeah, I had a nose, forehead. The eyebrow comes in right to the crease of the eye with glue. I pretty much finished the shoot with very few eyebrows left, because every day you take them off, you just lose a few more.
Thorin carries the Orcrist sword with the elven blade. Talk about the movement training you had to do to be able to wield all of those gracefully.
Well, each actor had a specific training program developed for them according to which weapons they were going to use. Initially, I start with a broadsword, but we decided that the broadsword and Orcrist would probably work in the same way, but Orcrist is a much longer sword and it's got a curved blade.
But at certain points in filming, because of the high frame rate, you're using actual blades, correct?
A mixture of both.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes we had the full blade, which was a slightly lighter weight version, an aluminium version.
So going into production, did you know that it would eventually become 3 films?
I didn't for 1 minute think that he would expand it into 3 films. I thought that it would probably end in a director's cut, an extended edition DVD. You know, the one thing about putting it into 3 films is that it gives these characters space to breathe and develop. And actually, when you watch the first film, it is absolutely jam-packed. There is no room for anything else, and there is certainly no padding. So everyone's fears about this story being stretched into too much screen time, I think, is unfounded.
We will seize this chance to take back Erebor!
So we asked a couple of readers on Twitter,
Yeah.
actually we have a couple million readers on Twitter, and
Yeah.
if they had any questions for you, so I wondered if I could just relay a few of them,
Sure.
aside from fielding some marriage proposals for you
Okay.
by some eager fans. What has been surprising about acting in and promoting this film compared with television series? And I suppose the reader is referring to your work in MI5/Spooks and Robin Hood.
Well, in terms of the making of the film, when you work on a project of this scale with the budgets that they have, it's not that more money is spent on actors and things like that. The money buys you time to experiment with character, because with television you get 2 or 3 takes and then you have to move on, because if you don't shoot the day, you lose the scene. Whereas working on film, and especially working with Peter, he will shoot until he's got what he wants. So it's an opportunity to maybe go to a place that you've never been before and really develop a character in a way that I've never done before. In terms of promoting the film, of course, this is a global movie, so travelling around the world, you know, telling everyone that we made a good film, hopefully, and seeing their reaction is very different to TV.
Did the knowledge that the film would appear and was being filmed in 3D and high frame rate affect your performance on any level?
No, not really. You work in the same way. Peter never really designed a shot around the idea of 3D. Occasionally he would say, you know, if you make this movement with the sword, that will look great in 3D. Although I feel that the movie isn't really about shocking an audience with its effects. I feel like it's all about immersion and showing the natural world and showing these incredible creatures in a way that makes you feel like you're with them. There are digital expertise on the screen, but it's not designed to sort of make you jump and shock you, I don't think.
Mm-hmm. Another good reader question is, what do you miss most about the camaraderie on the set?
You know what, I think the camaraderie on the set is so important to everyone's character building process, and you take a little bit of everybody's personality, character and actor, and it feeds into your performance, certainly. And I think it was something that I benefited from in terms of playing Thorin and trying to play a leader of a rowdy group of dwarves. You know, that was certainly a challenge.
And the last question is, would you like to be in more films like The Hobbit after this, or do you anticipate going in a completely different direction?
I always want to go in a completely different direction. You know, I've always tried to welcome in contrast. That's the one thing that I've sought, and in a way that's why I decided to do this movie, because it was a contrast to anything that I've done before. It was a big transformation. So I suppose another big transformation role would be exciting, where you know you don't look like yourself, but equally a very simple movie where there are no effects and it's just shot with a very basic camera, 2 actors, a good script. That would be something I'd like.
Well, thanks so much for speaking with us, Richard.
You're welcome.